up faint emissions along the Perseus frontier, near an abandoned sector that no major power claimed. The readings were weak, like the sigh of old reactors running on scraps of fuel. At first, the Dominion dismissed it. Ancient wreckage was common. The galaxy was littered with forgotten shipyards, skeletal hulls drifting where civilizations had perished. The Perseus graveyard, as navigators called it, had always been considered barren, a field of rusting bones. Yet as cycles passed, the signals grew. Strange fluctuations, power spikes too ordered to be random, rhythms like heartbeat pulses, energy signatures that whispered of reactors long thought dead. A Seleth archivist, curious, cross-referenced the frequencies. What she found made her scales shiver. The codes were Terran. Legends brushed aside. The conquered council convened. 1,000 voices argued in the echoing chambers of the nebula spire. "The Terrans are dust," scoffed a Branth warlord, tapping claws on the table. "If their bones drift, let them drift." "More likely scavenger tricks," another sneered. "Pirates mimic old codes to frighten border colonies, do not dignify ghosts." Yet unease stirred beneath their arrogance. Even dead, the human name carried a shadow. Myths told of Terran fleets that had once burned through entire armadas, of soldiers who fought until worlds cracked beneath them. Still, the council concluded, the signals were ruins, nothing more. The galaxy laughed at ghosts. The awakening. Then came the night the laughter died. A Quarrel scout ship, the Irixa, drifted through the graveyard. Its crew reported mountains of dark steel, hulls kilometers long, their surfaces scarred but unbroken, resting in ordered rows like soldiers in eternal sleep. The crew scanned deeper. That was their mistake. The Irixa's sensors triggered responses. Not random sparks, systematic awakenings. Lights bloomed along the hulls, cold and steady. Engines whispered to life, old but unyielding. Shield lattices flickered, knitting themselves from ancient emitters. And then movement. One by one, the Millennia-Old giants stirred. Towers of war, their names etched in forgotten Terran tongues, shook off centuries of dust. The graveyard was no grave. It was a cradle. The Irixa fled. Half its transmissions burned in static as they escaped, but one message carried through the void. They live, the Terran fleet lives. Engines against the stars. The galaxy did not believe, until they saw the stars themselves dim. Entire flotillas rose from the Perseus sector, their numbers beyond counting. Each hull bore scars of ages past, yet moved with a precision that mocked modern navies. Human war codes, encrypted and untouched by time, slipped through networks still hardwired into the galaxy's space lanes. Doors opened. Relays obeyed. Access codes never revoked gave the dead command once again. Observers trembled as they watched colossal dreadnoughts ignite drives that had not burned in 3,000 years. Their wakes bent space itself. Their formations were flawless, drilled into them by commanders who had died before half the conquered species had even reached the stars. The fleets did not drift. They maneuvered alive, coordinated, ready. The terror of the forgotten arsenal. The conquered scrambled ships to intercept. Proud destroyers and sleek cruisers confronted the first Terran phalanx at the edge of the graveyard. They never stood a chance. Terran hulls, ancient yet eternal, cut through them like blades through smoke. Plasma lances carved arcs of fire. Kinetic rounds, simple, brutal, devastating, pierced shields thought impenetrable. Every move was ruthless efficiency. Modern navies realized with horror that the Terran fleet was not outdated, it was overbuilt. Constructed in an age when humanity prepared for extinction wars, their ships were fortresses first, weapons second. No compromise, no weakness. The sky filled with burning wreckage, not Terran but alien. And the whisper began to spread. The storm preserved. Panic rippled through the conquered. If these were only the ships found in one forgotten sector, what of the rest? How many more graveyards were not graves at all, but armories sealed in waiting? Rumors surged. Hidden Terran caches under gas giants, fleets buried beneath asteroid belts, shipyards slumbering under the ice of rogue worlds. Each legend, once dismissed as human bravado, now felt like prophecy. The council sat in dread. They realized the truth too late. Humanity had never intended to vanish quietly. They had sown their fleets across the stars, sleeping, preserved storms awaiting the call. And now, one storm had already risen. Aftermath, the whisper of dread. Across the galaxy, silence fell once again, but it was no longer the silence of forgetting. It was the silence of fear. The name of Earth, once a ghost, now carried the weight of inevitability. Every admiral, every ruler, every archivist knew. If this was what humanity left behind as relics, then what would happen if living Terrans still existed somewhere, hidden, waiting to reclaim their fleets? The old saying, half forgotten in the conquered, returned to trembling lips. Humans don't just build fleets, they build storms, and storms wait. The galaxy understood at last. The Millennia-Old hulls had ignited their engines once again. And they were only the beginning. For the archivists of the Vayari Dominion, history was a tool of power. It told them which species had risen, which had fallen, and which had disappeared into the black void of irrelevance. Humanity was filed neatly in the last category. The records were clear. A restless species that once clawed its way into the stars with fire and steel, burning fast and bright. They fought endless wars, even against themselves, then against outsiders when they first crossed the abyss between suns. But like so many who reached too far, too quickly, their light dimmed. The Dominion libraries showed no human signal for 5,000 years. No colonies, no transmissions, no fleets, just silence as if Earth had swallowed its children and left the galaxy to the real civilizations. The Vayari laughed about it, how humans boasted of endurance and grit, yet vanished like sparks in a storm. The Dominion's ruling council often used them as a cautionary tale. Ambition without longevity leads only to dust, and dust, they believed, was all that remained of humanity. Whispers from the graveyards. The silence was broken not with a thunderclap, but with a whisper. Deep in the Kelthar expanse, a region considered barren, marked with only ruined coordinates on old star charts, Dominion surveyors began picking up signals. Faint, fractured, drifting on ancient carrier waves that no modern system used. At first, the readings were dismissed as background noise, cosmic echoes. But then came the structures. A derelict station, vast and skeletal, orbiting a dead star. Its hull was scarred, its surface worn, but it pulsed with a heartbeat of power, impossibly faint. Beyond it, in the blackness, hung shapes that chilled even the most seasoned explorers, rows of vast silhouettes, suspended like tombstones in orbit. The survey crews named it the Graveyard of Iron. The Dominion Senate, confident in their supremacy, called it little more than relics of the human race, rotting carcasses of ships too old to matter. Still, caution demanded a deeper scan. When they did, the data returned impossible results. Power signatures, shield harmonics, reactors in standby. Not ruins. Waiting. When the ashes breathed fire. On the 57th rotation of observation, something changed. The first pulse was small, a flicker from the derelict station. Then, one by one, the vast, dark hulls stirred. Their outlines glowed faintly as ancient plating shifted. Massive engines, dormant for millennia, rumbled with vibrations that rippled through the void. One vessel, larger than any warship known to the Dominion, ignited its drive. Its exhaust plume tore a wound of blue fire across the stars. The Vayari command ships orbiting nearby scrambled to retreat, assuming a catastrophic detonation. But it wasn't collapse, it was rebirth. Across the graveyard, hulls once thought lifeless came alive. Thousands, every contour precise, every maneuver disciplined. Their formation was flawless, not the chaos of decay, but the cold order of readiness. And then came the signals. Encrypted human codes, untouched for 5,000 years, spilled across comm channels. Dominion AI couldn't break them, but the ships responded to each other in perfect synchrony, as if no time had passed at all. What was thought to be ruins had never been ruins. It was a fleet that had waited longer than most civilizations had existed. The fleet that shouldn't exist. The Dominion Navy arrived in force, thinking they could corral or dismantle the awakening machines. After all, what threat could ancient vessels pose against modern warcraft? But the arrogance of the Dominion dissolved the moment their ships engaged. The Terran warships didn't falter. They didn't hesitate. Their targeting systems locked onto Dominion cruisers as if they had fought them yesterday. Hull plating deflected plasma strikes that should have burned through any alloy. Rail fire tore apart Dominion destroyers with surgical precision. The human ships moved like predators,